Alrighty, good morning. So today's webinar is on creating and grading assignments via Canvas. So I'm in a Canvas course currently, and we're going to walk through how to create assignments, how to access Rubrics on the Speedgrader, and how grades look. We're going to talk a little bit about the difference between points and percentages as well. So in order to set up my gradebook, the first place I always need to go to in Canvas is Assignments. So I'm going to click on Assignments on the left-hand side. And I can see several assignments that I've already created in the past, but I want to go ahead and create a brand new assignment. So to do that, I'm going to hit the plus assignment button. We're almost always looking for a plus button in the upper right-hand corner. And now Canvas is going to prompt me for some information about my assignment. So what is this particular assignment called? What are the instructions I need to give to my students about the assignment, such as if this is about a reading, what reading should the students be referring to? How many words maybe do I want in their response to the reading? Is this a group project? Is this a solo project? When is it due? You know, different information there. I'm then going to be able to set how many points my assignment is worth. If I'm using assignment groups, which means I'm grouping my assignments together to organize them or potentially assign weights to them, I'm going to select my group. I can also do this after the fact, so this is not something you have to do in this moment. Under display grades, the default is points, but you can have it display as percentage. You could do complete, incomplete, which means all or nothing. So that means the student either is getting the full 10 points or 0. There is no in between. You could also do letter grade or connect to GPA scale. Be aware that the GPA scale, or actually the letter grade scale in Canvas is defaulted to the UNC Charlotte standard, which is a 10-point scale for undergrads and a 10-point scale for graduate students, where the last two grades are a little bit different because graduate students have A, B, C, and then the last letter is, I think, U. So they don't have B or F. So if you're using a different scale than what UNC Charlotte tends to use as a standard, you can change that in the gradebook in Canvas. If that's something you need walked through, you can always reach out to Canvas Help. Remember the Canvas Help button to the side. You can call the support hotline and they would walk you through step by step how to change your grading scale. If I need the students to turn in some sort of a document, but I don't necessarily want them to be getting points for it, I just want to give them feedback, I could say do not count this towards the final assignment. So that means I can give the students feedback. I can even give them a hypothetical grade, such as this is your paper rough draft, and if you were to turn this in as the final, you would get, in theory, an 8, but if you redo it from here, you could get the full 10 points. But maybe I don't want them to get 8 points for the rough draft. I just want to tell them it's currently measuring an 8 out of 10. So that's what this particular checkbox does. When you have students submitting materials, obviously in this particular situation, we're having students submit things online for the most part. When we have students submit online, we have a few different ways we can have them do that. We can have them do a text entry, which means that the students will type directly into Canvas. There will be a box when they come to the assignment and they're just typing into it. If you're having students do something like a really short response, this is great. If you're having them do something longer or something that requires formatting of any type, I would go ahead and do file upload instead and have students make a Word document. Because since text entry doesn't allow for any formatting, just be aware that you won't be able to grade for that. However, if it's just a really quick entry, you certainly can do that. And you can, by the way, check more than one box at a time. So if you would like to have them choose between text entry or file, I could have both boxes checked. You'll notice I can also restrict the file type. So if I'm somebody who only accepts Word documents for my assignments, I could say only Word documents in the file type, or only PDF, or only Excel spreadsheets, or only PowerPoints, whatever the file type might be. A website URL means you want the student to copy and paste a link that you would then follow. And there is an option here that says media recording, which implies students would then record a video that they were turning into you. We actually don't recommend using this one in this location. If you're interested in creating video assignments for students, we recommend doing that in Kaltura, which if you look in the categories on the left-hand side, I don't have mine enabled right this moment, but you'll see a category called My Media, and that connects to Kaltura. And Kaltura is what we use for our videos in Canvas. And the reason for that is media recording will use your Canvas course data limit, whereas Kaltura is unlimited data storage. So by using Kaltura, we don't have to worry about the videos eating up our data. So just be aware, we don't recommend this one. That's something that we recommend doing through Kaltura instead. If I have a text-based assignment, I can do a plagiarism review. This is what we call SimCheck, which is the company that we're currently using for our plagiarism review. Essentially gives a report to you and the students that shows how much the system suspects the student has plagiarized. There's different colors to denote different levels, but essentially this is a really great tool to have discussions with students about proper citation. We found that most of the time that's what the plagiarism review tends to catch is citation issues, or in some cases, I've even put my own work in there, and occasionally it will spit out a few spots where it is cited, but the system didn't catch it immediately. So just be aware that the plagiarism review is something where you do need to look at the report carefully and see what the report is saying, but it's definitely a very useful piece. You can create group assignments or peer review assignments. If with group assignments, essentially what is happening is what one student turns in counts for everyone in the group. So one student will be turning in all material. You can't have one student turn in one piece and another student in the group turn in another piece. What happens is then what the second student turns in overwrites the first. So definitely I would say if you're using group assignments, tell your students one person is turning everything in. You have the option to give students individual grades, or if you do not check this box, the grade you give one student counts for everyone in the group. And groups are something you can either make ahead of time in the people category in Canvas, or it's something that you can do right here in the assignment directly, where we'll ask you to make a new set of groups. You can have Canvas shuffle them automatically and allow you to not have to worry about who's in what group, and it's very randomized. Or you can do it manually if you've paired certain students together for various learning purposes. If I would like students excuse me, to review one another, I could manually assign who I want to review, which other student, or I can have Canvas automatically assign the peer reviews. If I say automatically, it's going to ask me how many reviews I would like each person to get. So it could be each student is doing one, or each student is doing two, or however many. And then I also have to say what date I want Canvas to release the materials for students to peer review. That date does have to come after the due date. If you do leave this blank, it does assume that the due date is the date that you want the students to start peer reviewing one another. You can also make peer reviews be anonymous. You as the teacher will still know who reviewed who, but the students will not know whose item it was. However, be aware that if you have students turning in papers where they've done, like APA formatting, and so therefore their name is on a title cover, Canvas isn't hiding the title page or the name in the actual assignment. It's only hiding the name in Canvas. So just be aware that this setting only works if the student hasn't put their name on the document itself. This is something I've run into before, but if you do want it to be anonymous because students are worried about scoring each other and being judgmental in any way, this definitely is something helpful. Just make sure, again, they're not putting their name on the assignment itself. So the last thing I want to mention in creating an assignment is how we assign to our students. We can put in a due date, and we can also put in availability dates. Availability dates will actually lock the assignment. The due date will simply dictate when you want the assignment to be turned in, but it will not prevent students from turning it in late. It will mark it as late in the gradebook, but it will still let students turn it in. Availability dates, on the other hand, will actually lock the assignment, and students will not be able to turn it in unless they are within the parameters of those dates. You do not have to do availability dates, but I definitely recommend doing a due date so students know when their assignment is due. The default is 11:59 p.m. You don't have to use that. You can change the time to whatever you're more comfortable with. Now, once I've created all of my various assignments, I want to just talk really briefly about a points gradebook versus a percentage gradebook. In a points gradebook, essentially what has happened is all of the different assignments have a different point value, and the assignments add up to a total point value, and the student's grade is calculated, of course, by how many points they earned out of how many were possible. The other kind of gradebook you might be interested in is what we call a percentage gradebook, which means that you've assigned weights to your assignments instead of just using the points. In order to assign weights, by default your gradebook is in a points method. If you want to assign weights, you have to go to the More Options button on the very upper right. It looks like a little dot, dot, dot. And when I click Assignment Groups Weight, I have to check the box that says Weight Final Grade based on assignment groups. So you'll notice that this particular course has different groups with different weights per group. And in the end, what we want is for it to add up to a perfect 100 in the total. You want to make sure that this is a perfect 100 or your grading will be skewed. The way that I've done this is I've created various assignment groups, and I've put the assignments within them. Please be aware the weighting is only for the group. You cannot weight individual assignments inside the group. So for example, even though paper 1 says 20 points and paper 2 says 40 points, they will actually be treated equally, because the way Canvas is doing this is it's going to divide each of these assignments equally into 25%. So if you're someone that wants to be able to break down the weight further than that, you'll need to make more groups and smaller percentages in order to make sure that everything has the percentage that it should. But it is going to break out whatever that group percentage is equally amongst the various assignments. It does not care what the point value is. That's the most common hang up that I find people get. So for a points gradebook, we're simply adding up the various points of the different assignments. For a percentage gradebook, we're using the percentages that are in the groups of our assignments. Going back to one of my individual assignments, if you are interested in using rubrics with your assignments, once the assignment has been created, you'll have this view where it has a quick synopsis of what I've created with this particular assignment. And at the very bottom of that, you'll notice a plus rubric button. So this is where you can create a rubric and attach it to your assignment. Be aware that rubrics are account level instead of course level. So what that means is if I've already created a rubric that I want to keep using, I could click Find a Rubric, and even if I've made that rubric in another course, I could go find that rubric and copy it in here. So once you've made a rubric that you want to use, you don't have to keep remaking it every time you have a new assignment. You can just click Find a Rubric and keep inserting it if you're using the same one. If you create a rubric, you will be able to see it in the Speedgrader, which is what we're going to look at next, you would simply check the box, use this rubric for assignment grading, and then you would be able to click the various criteria, and it would add up the total points that the student had earned for that particular assignment. Once you have assignments, you'll have something called, you'll see the Speedgrader linked to the right of each individual assignment. So I clicked on assignment number 2 and I see the link to the Speedgrader. When I click on it, it's going to open a brand new tab at the top of my screen. And it's going to show me the submission for the student, or for example, in this case, the fact that the student has not submitted. If I drop the arrow next to the student name, I'll see my entire class roster and be able to click on the different student names and grade them. I could also scroll through using the arrows at the top. You'll notice that in this particular case, because the due date has passed and the student has not turned anything in, it does say that it's missing. If the student had turned it in late, this would say late, and if it was on time, I would not see any sort of indicator that there was an issue. I'm going to try to briefly open a different assignment. I think I have one that has an example in it. Give me just a moment. So in this particular assignment, there was a rubric created. So you can see that the rubric will exist within the Speedgrader to the right. You'll be able to provide comments to the different assignments. You could also attach a file to the assignment if your feedback was particularly lengthy, or if you wanted to attach a file related to the kind of feedback that you wanted to give, such as perhaps you didn't want to put the rubric directly in Canvas and you want to attach the rubric separately as a file to show how you were scoring the student. That's something you could do. Or you could even use the media comment to record your voice and give verbal feedback. So if you find that that would be faster for you than typing out your feedback, this is something that I think is quite popular amongst different faculty. And once you click submit, your feedback and the grade will show in the gradebook. So make sure you click submit after each student before moving on to the next one to make sure that you've saved what you've been doing. If this was a paper that was showing here, I would have buttons appearing at the top that look very similar to the track changes that you would see in Microsoft Word. I would have strike through, highlight, and other various buttons. You see really quickly if I can go find one that already has those items in it. Here we go. So this is what it can look like once the student has turned in an assignment. You notice that my colleague has already provided feedback to this particular student. And you see the various buttons at the top, such as place a point where you would like to leave a comment. I can highlight. I can leave text. I can strike through. All kinds of different options. And I can zoom in if this is particularly small for me to read. So you can leave the one large comment to the student or more individual feedback. And of course, once students have started submitting, you can download your submissions as files if you prefer to grade them directly in Microsoft Word. I do find the Speedgrader is a little easier because it saves everything in one place, but just be aware that is an option that you have. And the last thing I want to discuss is the fact that everything that we've created in assignments shows in the grades category. When we come to grades, you'll notice that there's no small plus button here, and that's because we don't add new assignments in grades. Grades is simply the collective assignments that we've already created put into sort of an Excel style format. For those assignments I've already graded, the scores are already here. There's various colors, such as the dark red pinkish color, which indicates that these assignments are missing. But if I wanted to go ahead and grade students directly, as in I already knew what the final exam grades were, I don't need the Speedgrader, I just need to put in the numbers, I could click on the box and give scores directly in grades. So if you don't need to give specific feedback, you just need to put in the scores, you can do that directly in the grades area. If you need to excuse a particular assignment, such as the student has a valid excuse for the assignment, but there's no way for them to make it up, you could type in capital EX and then enter, and that will excuse the student from that assignment. So that assignment will count neither for nor against them. It will take it out of the calculation for that student. So if that's something you need to be able to do, that is how that works.